Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? All righty. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here today. Today, we're going to talk about leading with purpose and gaining insights from these amazing leaders of color. My name is Nicole Stovall. I am the Vice President of Merck's Global Diversity and Inclusion Center of Excellence. So when we think about leadership, we know that leadership is not just about titles. If you think about our communities, the schools, our churches, think about the people who are really making a difference. Who's really making an impact? Who's fostering progress? They don't always have to have the biggest titles. These are people who are really moving and shaking. And when I think about my dad, he used to always say, when you want something done, ask a black woman. Because I think we know black women, no matter what we do, where we are, we tend to want to make a difference and make an impact. So when it comes to leaders of color, it's really about making sure that we are finding a pathway and our path is really shaped by purpose and persistence. And so today's conversation, we're going to talk about looking behind the titles and thinking about the stories, the real stories that we have, the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the lessons that shape how we lead and how we uplift others. So I'm really, really excited to be joined today by these trailblazing leaders. These women are accomplished women. They have the titles, but they also have an amazing journey and many lessons to impart. And I'll ask them to share more about their journeys as we talk. They're going to really share how they are been able to make meaningful impact in their respective fields and how they continue to lead with intention, authenticity, and with a deep commitment to community as well. So please join me in welcoming these amazing trailblazing leaders to the panel today. So first, I want to ask all of the panelists here to talk about your journey. You all have these amazing titles, these amazing positions, and are very accomplished in all that you've done. But if you could talk about how you got there, what was your journey? What were the pivotal moments that got you to where you are today? And if I could start with you, Marketa, please, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Nicole, for hosting this really important panel, and thank all of you for being here. Really excited to be here today. So I am a psychiatrist by background and training, but after I finished my residency, my training in psychiatry, I knew that I wanted to make a broader impact on mental health in our country beyond the one-on-one patient encounters, which I love too, don't get me wrong. I love those interactions with my patients. And so after training, I decided to go back and get formal training in business leadership. And that was really a pivotal moment for me. Many of my mentors were like, why would you do that? Even my father was confused at the time. But I knew that I wanted more advanced training in leadership, and so went and got it. And from there, every step along the way has been a pivotal moment, learning different leadership lessons. I've worked in public health, I've worked in clinical medicine, I've worked in the insurance company industry, and now have the true privilege and honor of leading the American Psychiatric Association, which is our nation's oldest medical professional society, 180 years old. And I am the first Black American and first woman to hold that role in 180 years, which is a true honor, a true honor. And so that would be how I would explain my story and some of the key pivotal moments. I'm excited to hear from the other panelists as well.
Thank you so much for that, and congratulations. That's an amazing accomplishment. Chiquita, could you share your story?
I would be happy to, and let me also say what a privilege and pleasure it is to be with you all, especially to such a wonderful panel. I started my career in government as what we call a civil servant, which means not a political appointee. I started at what we call the Office of Management and Budget at the end of the Clinton administration. And one of the first things that I worked on was children's health insurance. It had just passed Congress, and so it was a baby program. And I got to travel around the country and really look in the eyes of parents who were so excited that their children were now going to have affordable health coverage. It really changed me, and I became very passionate about making sure that everybody in this country had access to affordable care. I stayed through the first couple of years of the Bush administration, and I mention that to say that one of the things I really learned during my time there was how to talk to people who don't think exactly the same way that you do. I had just come out of the Clinton administration, people all left, and they loved the children's health insurance program. It was their baby. And then my boss, I had to explain to him why we needed to do some of these things. Then September 11th happened, and the administration wanted to give insurance to people who were dislocated workers, people who had lost their jobs. And so they did work on health insurance, and it looked very different than the way Democrats would go about it. But those things that I learned helped me in the future. So fast forward, I worked in the private sector, and then I come to the Ways and Means Committee, Congress, and work on health care, and we work on the Affordable Care Act. And some of those insights that I learned during the Bush administration helped me during that period of time. I had the privilege of really learning from some remarkable leaders, both leaders who gave me opportunities, even though I was young in my career, and let me step forward. One of my favorite days was being in the room when President Obama and all of our bosses were negotiating the Affordable Care Act. My boss had given me her seat in the White House, and I stood, she said, just stand really tall next to the curtains. I stood for 4 hours to be in that room. But it was an amazing experience, and I learned a great deal about how to be a leader, how to get things done, and spent time in the Obama administration. And those were wonderful years working on the Affordable Care Act. Then some time in the private sector, and then now just recently out of the Biden administration, where we had an incredible 4 years.
That's great. And we're still benefiting from the impact today. Thank you. Aaliyah, can you share your story, please?
Absolutely, and thank you again for hosting this panel, and to all of you for being here. As it was mentioned, I'm in the leadership development space, and it's something that I absolutely love. But when I think about my leadership journey, it actually started when I was very, very young. To be honest with you, my family would tell you that I was born bossy, okay? And why that's important is because what my parents saw in me was cultivated. It was encouraged. I was encouraged to sit at the front of the classroom. I was encouraged to take more responsibility. I was encouraged to speak up for people who couldn't necessarily speak up for themselves. And all along, I was building those leadership qualities through the support of my family. When I got into college, when I got into the workplace, and I too started in government in Prince George's County, Maryland, I was also encouraged by my mentors and people who I worked with to continue to lead, to take the leadership course, to go represent this, to go represent that. So there were opportunities that were presented to me that I kept leaning into. And when I had the opportunity to manage people, I said, of course I will, because I knew that I could treat people the way that I wanted to be treated, and I could help to bring out the best in them. And it was a rocky road at the beginning of my leadership tenure or leadership career, but I learned those lessons. Oh, I kept learning them over and over again until I felt like I became a better leader. So it really was about accepting responsibility. It was about the different principles being cultivated in me very young. And also, I happened into leadership development. I actually started my career in Health and Human Services. I was at Department of Family Service and Prince George's County Health Department. And when I moved to Texas, and I was at UT Southwestern Medical working in HIV/AIDS, and I encountered a challenging boss. I won't say it because this is being streamed, so I won't go too far. I encountered a challenging boss, And it was then that I realized that people who are in leadership positions really need help and they need to be cultivated. And when I happened into leadership development, I said, oh my goodness, this is a way that you can truly create change in the world when we create leaders who are better.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. And continuing to make an impact there through your leadership development and coaching executives all around the country. So thank you for that. So I want to talk a bit about navigating challenges. As leaders of color, we tend to bear a bit more responsibility for our communities as a whole. And that can carry a certain level of weight in the workplace and in organizations that we lead, because we often feel like we have to represent our community, but we're also trying to lead at the same time. So can you talk, I would like Chiquita and Marketa, can you talk a little bit about how you balance that type of responsibility and shoulder that particular burden that sometimes gets placed on you as a leader of color?
Yeah, so I'll start just by saying how it's CMS, those programs that we operate, Medicare, Medicaid, they are the financing part of healthcare. And there are not a lot of people of color who end up in that sphere of the space. I mean, CMS manages, I had responsibility for over $1.4 trillion. That's where the money is.
Right.
But there were not people in the room that looked like me for 2 decades, really. It was very rare for me to be in a room with another person of color. And so I had to learn how to navigate that space. When I became CMS administrator, I really was caught off guard in a wonderful way of how meaningful it was to so many people, so many women, but so many African Americans. I am the first Black person who has been the CMS administrator.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, I would read these biographies and said, oh, all the barriers are going to be broken by the time I grow up. I'm not going to get to be a first, but I was. I would say for the most part, I felt the privilege that comes with being in that role as opposed to it feeling overwhelming and pressure, because I felt like my community had lifted me up and help, and that by my just being who I was meaningful and helpful, and I really tried to lean into that. I was I was speaking at an event, and someone came up to me and she said, "Your name is complicated," and I just feel she was so happy. She said to me, "And you didn't go by C in your middle name." And I realized, like, making this decision, I am being a leader for these women who are like me with a complicated name that people say. I had staff who would get in tears that they never thought they would have a Black leader. And so I tried to channel all of the pressure into seeing this is a positive thing, and I am getting more positive than the negative pressure that comes from getting a side eye in the room or the things that come with being the only, and really try to focus on there is way more positive than negative.
That's great. Thank you.
Great answer, Chiquita. That's very impressive. For me, I think earlier on in my career, there were times when, as a woman and as a Black American, I would be in the room. Every other doctor would be called Dr. Such and Such, Dr. Such and Such, Dr. Such and Such, and then Marketa. And that would always be very dispiriting. Yes, yes. I see Dr. Lawson right there who really understands that. And, you take that personally. But then you also have to figure out a way to rise above it. And the way I Jedi mind tricked it was that I'm an eponym. I'm like Beyonce. They call me Marketa because I stand out that much, and that's how we're going to carry that. So every time someone would come with a sideswipe, I would just try to find a way to find goodness in it. And my commitment to myself, and I know Chiquita feels this way too, is I may be the first, but it is very important to me to make sure that I'm not the last. And so I'm creating spaces creating spaces wherever I am to mentor, sponsor, give information. I think that's something else. Just sometimes we don't have access to the information. Give information about some of the unwritten rules, about some of the along the edges and fringes, and try to pass that along to anyone. I mentor anyone, but certainly Black Americans and Black women in particular.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. And I love how you're opening doors for others as you're moving up, and I appreciate that very much, and I'm sure we all do. So I want to turn to now talking a bit about leading with purpose. That is actually the title for this particular panel, Leading with Purpose. And so Aaliyah, can you talk a bit about how you lead with purpose and really thinking about not just from an aspirational perspective, but really incorporating that into your day-to-day work, your behaviors, your actions. How do you lead with purpose?
Thank you for that question. The first part of that is really understanding what your core values are. What are the things that guide you? What are your guiding principles? When you have that, you can then get more closely connected with purpose. I went through my own leadership development journey. I'm a lifelong learner. And back in 2014, I went through a year-long leadership development program. In that program, we had to figure out our core values and guiding principles as well as our purpose. And I wanted to make it super complicated. I'm the architect of da-da-da-da-da. I wanted to get real flowery with everything. And it never quite fit right. And then it came to me one morning. I woke up and I heard, your purpose is to be of service, period. And when I got that clarity, when I have a difficult decision, when I've got to, hire or fire, whatever it is, does this align with my purpose? But the clarity of your purpose is what helps you to get to that place where you can always check in, you can always go back to it. And it's not necessarily easy to get there, but it's necessary. And there's lots of different tools, lots of different processes that you can use. And some people just know this is my purpose, which is wonderful. But it's about having that check-in and that self-talk and that connection to say, does this align to my purpose? Am I walking in it every day? And I know that when I'm taking certain actions, I'm very well aligned. And when you're out of alignment, you know as well.
Absolutely. And tying it to your values, I'm sure,
Yes.
makes a huge difference. So I want to make sure that we are able to talk a little bit about some advice that we would give to the emerging leaders in the audience. As you think about your journey and some hard lessons that you may have had navigating your career. Chiquita, could you talk about some lessons that you learned and advice that you would share to emerging leaders in the audience?
Yes, I would say one of the things people ask me all the time, how did you get to be where you are? And there is no magic formula to becoming whatever it is that you want to be. But one thing that I think is key to that is really some of these 2 golden rules. Treat others as you want to be treated, and remember that how people feel about you, that's what they're going to remember. And that's a misquote of Maya Angelou. But I would say that DC is a very transactional town. Sometimes people will size you up when you go in a meeting, like, do I need to talk to them? Do at a party, who do they? And so often, I don't understand why people don't learn this lesson, but power comes and goes. And the person who is the intern, it can be your boss in a couple of years. When I was in the private sector, hired several people, and then 2 jobs later, they were able to hire me because they were at companies. It is so important that you not be focused only on achieving your goal, but bringing people along with you, listening to other perspectives. All of us, no matter what our experience is, we only see in part, and we need to have openness to getting criticized, to bringing other people to the table. One of the things about me is I will explain to you if I'm not taking your recommendation. And sometimes, you'll make a mistake, and you need to have somebody on your team that will say, I know you don't want to do this, but you gotta. my former chief of staff is hearing me say, yes, that was me. You know, of really having people in your life that can say, you need to keep this perspective. But that is just something that I would just really encourage people to make sure you have some truth tellers in your circle and make sure you are treating people really, really well all the way up the process, because you never know who's going to be part of that decision-making process.
Thank you so much. So I know we're at time, but if you could just give one word, each of you, how you would describe leadership. Leadership with purpose is what? What does it mean to you? One word.
Presence.
Thank you.
Oh, one word.
You go.
I can't do a word. Leadership is about the ability to bring out the best in everyone.
Great. Thank you.
I'd like how you started, knowing your values and living your values.
Excellent. On that note, we'd like to wrap up. Thank you so much, audience, for being here today. And thank you for our esteemed panelists for your words of wisdom. Very much appreciated. Thank you.